Hey y'all, it's Logan. Today I wanted to talk to you about another factor of the exposure triangle. If you watched my previous video, we talked about aperture, and again, this is like a crash course, so I just want to get you familiar with the technical jargon and kind of understanding what it is a little bit. I go into detail later in some later videos, but for now, we're just gonna go basic and just give you what it is. So all shutter speed is the duration that your shutter is open to receiving light. And you can see that by a 30th of a second or a 50th of a second or a 1,000th of a second. If you've ever messed with the back dial of your camera, you would see your shutter speed, most likely. Some people have it to the front dial, most is on the back. That's what I do. So if you're ever in manual mode and you just mess around, you can crank up your shutter speed to a 1,000th of a second and you can see that it's letting less light in. So just like aperture, the lower the number, you're going to get more light into your sensor. And the higher the number, you're going to get less light. And there is some creativity involved in dealing with shutter speed. If you've ever seen any of those images that are blurry or part of it's really sharp and the rest of it's blurry, like a motorcycle whizzing by, that's what we call shutter drag, and that's achieved with a low shutter speed, such as a 50th of a second or 125th of a second or whatever your camera does. And you would pan your camera and you would get motion blur, because that's how long your camera is exposed to light. Your sensor is exposed to light because your shutter is open for that long. It's open for a second or 30th of a second. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're shooting sports or something like that, you're going to want to be at 1,000th of a second or 800th of a second to freeze motion. You don't want any of that blur. If a quarterback is throwing a ball or something, you don't want his arm to be all blurred out. So that's why you would use a higher shutter speed. But the other factors of the exposure triangle come into play with nailing your exposure for your perfect image of said quarterback throwing the ball. So if you're at 1,000th of a second and you're shooting with a 2.8 lens for your aperture, then in the next video, I will explain what ISO is. And that's how you can start to formulate this imaginary equation to get a perfectly exposed image or near perfect. There's always factors, there's always creative input, there's always other details. And I will go into some of that in later videos, but that's basically crash course in shutter speed. So like always, comment down below if you liked me rambling on about shutter speed, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.